Welcome to Caring Community with your hosts Jay and Diane West. In this community, creative initiatives are welcome. A culture of transformation is normal, and miracles are expected. Welcome to Caring Community.
Hi, this is Jay West.
And I'm Diane.
And this is Caring Community. We'd like to welcome to our second show our good friend Charles Nelson. Man, that last segment just flew by.
It did.
So if you didn't see the first show, you have to go back and watch it on our YouTube channel or whatever. It was fantastic, or go pick it up locally. Charles been, just recapping briefly, spent 48 months in prison, multiple sites in the United States. His wife Vanessa was murdered. I believe it was a drive-by shooting. Came out of prison. I met him. I met his mother. Long story there, but we connected. And we're going to talk about his daughter being murdered a couple years ago as well. So he's had 2 murders in his family, plus being in jail, plus all the other things. Yet an incredible man of God, working and serving the Lord, and really doing amazing, incredible, awesome, powerful things, and a life that's not over. Lots of things for him to do yet. So. We were just talking about God opening doors for you. Do you want to share a couple of those stories? I know, just from where we just left off to where we're going. You know, anything that pops into your head is fine. So we don't pre-script anything. So.
Well, definitely, Jay West and Diane, definitely good to be here with you. Definitely thank you for this opportunity to share the testimony that God has entrusted me with. I know last time we were just talking about some of the different things that are difficult when God leads you into even sometimes difficult situations. I have a thing when I look at Psalm 23, you see majority of those verses, it's all good things. The Lord is my shepherd. He leads me by the still water. He does all these great and wonderful things to take care of us. He prepares a table before us. Goodness and mercy falls behind us. Like, wow, who wouldn't want to serve this God? But when you look at verse 4, right in the middle, it said, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death. You know, just because God is our shepherd does not mean that we do not experience some hard time and hardship.
I think even the table, he says he prepares a table in the presence of your enemies. To me, it's like he sets a table up and he says, okay, you come to this meal, we're going to sit right next to the gates of hell. Okay, and the demons are going to be hissing, they're going to be jeering at you, they're going to be, taunting you and doing all sorts of things. He said, I'm going to take care of you. But it's like, can't we go someplace nice like Olive Garden or Panera Bread? We have to go right up next to the gates of hell to do this?
Yeah.
So,
yeah, I mean, there was just like all sorts of doors that were open, that was already in place. Like I said, being able to get that first kickback from God, that to be the first one to come out of that halfway house from the new bills that had been passed, that was awesome in itself. And just the work opportunities. Sometimes some of the doors were shutting. I was working at 2 jobs. I was working Panera Bread, and I was working Pepper Jacks.
I remember that too.
And
I do, because I remember saying he's working at 2 restaurants that begin with P. I can remember that.
It was sort of interesting in that aspect, like those things, and that just kept getting doors shut as far as like opportunities to move up in the company just because of my background and everything. And so those things were frustrating. But you just have to continue to persevere. Eventually I landed a job at Sitel, and I knew, at that point in time they're taking calls for DirecTV and their telecommunication, and I'm like, man, I've been in prison and all that, these fellas, so they're not gonna hire me, they're gonna hire me. I was so shocked that they actually hired me that at this point in time I was no longer working at Panera, and I was just full-time with Pepper Jacks. And I just knew I said, they ain't serious. They're not finished with the background check. I held on to Pepper Jacks for like an additional 2 months because I was just so fearful that they're going to find out and they're going to cut me. They're going to let me go. But they didn't, and I was able to stay there until the site here had closed, and that was heartbreaking. Because I had spent so much energy and time in building and just living in something I thought was never probably going to be available for me. And at this point in time,
It's one thing when you do drugs and you get sent to prison and that's on you. It's another thing when a you're working for a company and they close or they go down, and you put a lot into it, and it's on them. You know, it's like,
it's like, okay, so now where do I go
Now
from
what?
here?
Right, now what?
I had my daughter at that point in time. One of the things, that wasn't even a challenge in itself. It took me exactly a whole year to get my daughter under my care. And you talked about foster care children. She was getting bossed around from the foster care system, and the people were making me jump through loops and all these sort of different things. And God even placed the right probation officer in my place, you know, because he knew the things that I was going through, and he helped me stay one step ahead of everything. And it's like, oh, well, they're probably going to want you to have to take this assessment. So we're going to have you take this assessment as requirements of your probation, and therefore it will be already done and completed. And sure enough, that next time I went to court, I say, okay, I've done my A, B, and C that you gave me last time. It's like, okay, well, that's great. Well, now we need this assessment. It's like, okay, well, I already have taken that assessment. We'll get that information over to you from my probation officer. And so, but anyway, I had to jump through a whole bunch of loops for a whole year to get Kavion, which was the only living child that me and Vanessa had. And Vanessa passed away in 2009, and things started. With all the doors opening up, the doors for ministry. Oh my gosh, that was a wrestling match between me and God. And I was like, "You sure? You know who I am? Do you know all the stuff I did? You want to use me?"
I just put a quote on Facebook, and it says this: "I know God's a gentleman because He's still opening doors for me." So He's opening doors for you.
Yeah, and He gave me so much favor in so many different circles. I can go into places, I can have conversation in areas that I probably would be fearful of if it was 15 years ago.
Right.
Be able to go into the district attorney's office and speak, hey, how's everybody doing? And know some of the people by name and not fearful of what ticket or warrant that I may be coming down here to clear. It's just a whole lot of difference that is there.
Wow.
But throughout this time, our seasons, we experienced so much grief.
Yeah, you did. I can't even imagine how much grief
No, I
you've gone
can't
through.
either.
It was like 3 months after losing the job with Sitel, Mom had got sick.
Right.
It's the end of January, and she's just like, she calls me up one day, and it was either my mom, either me or my sister were taking her to work. She's like, she called me a little bit earlier than normal. I was like, okay, this is a little odd. She was like, I'm just calling you just to make sure you was taking me to work today. I was like, yeah. She was like, okay, but I don't think I'm gonna go to work. I think I'm gonna go to the hospital. And she had been developing a cough that we was all concerned about, and we had been trying to tell her, But we all also wrote it off as probably was her blood pressure.
And just for those, I got to know your mom pretty good, and again, we'd pop in at Panera's all over town, and she'd be there, And I said, why are you here? And she goes, and I found out Panera would move your mom to a Panera Bread that wasn't doing well, and your mom as manager would then bring it back up to the level that Panera was looking for, And
yeah, she did a really good job with that. She was like the Panera management fixer.
Right.
Yes,
They always
the
several
Panera
times tried to
queen.
give her a store. I wanted her BGM. And that's another thing. And it's like you have to know your limits. And my mom knew her limits.
She didn't want to do that.
She didn't
I
want
asked
to
her several
BGM.
times, why don't you do that? She says, it's just not my calling. That's not what I'm supposed to do.
Her line to me was, I'll help people fix their problem. I don't want the problem myself.
Right. No, I remember having that conversation with her because I saw the leadership capabilities in her, which you also have.
Glory be to God.
You also have that.
Yeah, and so Mom got sick and she was in the hospital. We did not see this coming from. You could have gave us a set of binoculars, a telescope, and we still would never have seen this coming. 2.5 weeks after being in the hospital, and she passed away.
Wow, it was that fast.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't remember it being that fast. I remember it being quick, but I don't remember being that fast.
Yep. But God, like you say, He opened up doors. He also works in interesting ways, because He had me bathed in Philippians 4, dealing with this God of peace. Who is this God of peace? What does His peace look like? And these were the weeks leading up to even before she had got sick. So I had this overwhelming peace even as going through
we
that.
looked at Philippians last time. Philippians starts in some of the other books there too.
Yeah.
Grace and peace, grace and peace.
Yes.
Well, there's no peace without grace.
No.
You know, and it's like, it's the grace of God that leads us to the peace of God. And it opens up the door for you to have it. And if you're not experiencing, if you're wrestling with your peace, you might look at where you are with the grace part of God too.
Yeah. And you know, at this point, I hadn't been preaching just for a couple of years. I got accustomed to seeing my mother whenever she can get off work from Panera to be out there, and she was so the Zion.
Is this
they
at Zion?
Loved her.
You're preaching just
This one out just at Zion. And sometimes I get called to preach at other churches and get invitations to preach wherever it was. If she was available, she'll make sure she was there. And
she was very proud of you.
Yes,
Yes.
she was.
that is a very interesting story in itself. It was just so good to live in that realm. And it was the interesting thing, the woman that gave birth to me, I got to watch her be born again.
Oh.
That she came forth and gave her life to Christ.
Oh.
And I switched phones, but I think I still have the recording on my phone. If all the data transferred over.
Yeah.
But I had the recordings and I would still watch it.
Yeah.
And the woman that taught me my first words, I was able to say her last words for her. I was able to do her eulogy. And that.
So, I mean, it's just, you know, Vanessa, your mom, your daughter, it's crazy. I mean, it's absolutely, nobody would wish this upon their worst enemy.
No.
These were the most important women in my life.
Right.
You know, my mother, she raised me. We've seen ups and downs and all arounds. Vanessa, this was a woman, regardless if we get along or not. We're supposed to grow old and at least be in some type of communication relationship as we deal with our family.
Right.
And then my daughter, my legacy, my only child.
So your mom passed away what year?
That was in 2017, February 16th.
And then your daughter passed away, was murdered, killed.
Yes. Oh man, just as we probably coming to true grips with dealing with that.
Was it last year?
No, it's been 2 years.
2 years
It was
now?
April 18th.
Okay.
April 18th, 2018.
The picture you showed on your phone, I'd like, with your permission, I'd like the viewers to see. You won't pull it out now, but we'll put it in, insert it later. It's a beautiful picture of him and his daughter a day or two before she died.
Well, it wasn't actually a day or two.
Okay.
I think it was like maybe a week or a
Okay,
little
I
bit
thought it
more
was-
than that.
okay.
It was our last date,
It was your
daddy-daughter
daddy
date.
date. It was your
Yeah.
daughter date.
We used to always
Okay.
go out on
Right,
dates,
that
and
was
that's
it.
what we actually called them, daddy-daughter date.
Right.
So
Right.
there would be those dates where I would turn off the phones and things. And
She
we'll
was
go
how
on.
old at that time?
21.
21.
21.
Yeah.
And her name again?
Kavion.
That's a
Kavion.
pretty name.
Yeah.
Kavion.
I remember going to the funeral. We talked about that before
Yeah.
the memorial service, and I remember that vividly. And you were even there. I watched you afar. You were so brave, you know, courageous, unimaginable. But yet God's still using you.
Yeah.
And here's the interesting thing. We shared before, yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death. We go through something, and I tell people all the time, because we're going to something. And if you don't mind, I'm going to share another scripture, 2 Corinthians, and I actually shared this last night too. That's why it's fresh in my mind. But 2 Corinthians chapter 1 has an interesting set of 2 verses. Together, blessed be the God and Father of our Lord Jesus Christ, the Father of mercies and the God of all comfort, who comforts us in our tribulation, that we may be able to comfort those who are in any trouble with the comfort by which we ourselves are comforted by God.
Yeah.
So what that means is that the stuff you've gone through, you are going to something as well, but you take the comfort that you've received from God, and now you're able to comfort somebody else that's going through something else. I frequently say, I don't have to have a brain tumor to comfort somebody that has a brain tumor. I don't have to go through a horrendous car accident or a boat accident to comfort somebody else who has gone through that. I take the comfort by which God has comforted me when they wanted to like cut off my entire ear because of the skin cancer I had, you know, or being healed supernaturally of irritable bowel syndrome or whatever. My car accident with a semi truck, I take where I've gone through stuff, and then apply that comfort to help somebody else, and you'll do the same.
Yeah.
Multiple times over.
Will do and have been able to do.
Right.
There has been so many times, so many different opportunities where the experiences that I've had have been of aid to strengthen and deepen my understanding of what someone could be possibly going through.
Right.
I use that word "could" intentionally because even though a situation may be very similar, people's feelings are still different. The overall aspect of what you may be experiencing may be the same. It's just being able to watch on TV and see another young person losing their life will always hit my heart.
Right.
But after losing my daughter, it created a new sense. It created a different dynamic to that. I know what it feels like.
Well, it's like
Right.
we watch the news differently now. You know, I watched the news, can't remember when it was, last summer, some young lady in North Omaha, her 3-year-old son had been hit in a car and killed, okay? And she forgave the person that did it, you know. And I found it with social media. I found her name. I sent her a note. I said, that was just amazingly courageous for you to offer that forgiveness and to share that. We saw, not to take any credit, we saw an Uber driver last year who had been scammed out of $100 and some, okay? And it was done on Channel 6 News. And so I called Channel 6 News because I know that, you know, some of the staff there, they were there at your daughter's funeral too. And I said, we'd like to help. And long story short, they were able to connect us with that Uber driver. We were able to just personally just bless her and give her money back. And she's like, I can't believe somebody would reach out and help me in my little loss. And I said, because other people have helped us in our losses. That's the point. You know, define needs in the city or in our area of influence. You know, you'll meet people I'll never meet. I'll meet people you never meet. Together we might meet some that we can help together and truly make a difference. You know, and she was just overwhelmed. She started crying. We actually gave her more money because she had, and then she lost because she said she had to change all her bank accounts and that cost her money and everything else because she was scammed electronically out of this money. You know, and I'm not taking any credit. I'm just using it as an example. There's life is happening out there every day. And for a lot of people, it's not good life. It's a bad life, you know. And they're struggling and they're crawling and they're just. I mean, this lady, Uber driver, she's probably in her mid to late 60s because her husband's retired and they're just doing it and she drives at night. She drives like from 11 at night till 5 in the morning. You know, in the streets, picking up, you know, people who need a ride to make ends meet. And we all have a part. You have an amazing part. You're going to have an amazing part. I rarely do this, but prophetically, I believe you have not even remotely seen God's best yet for what He has for you.
Well, that is very humbling.
But you're a humble kind of guy. That's why He can use you.
You made me lose all my words now. But
Well, my wife will sing a song. It'll all come back.
you know, when you were telling those stories, it's those acts of God doesn't just require us to be nice. He wants us to be kind, and He wants us to be able to have compassion.
Right.
Difference between being nice is I could be nice while gritting my teeth. I'm gonna still get this woman this water, even though she's getting on my nerves. That's nice.
Yeah,
Being kind is going that extra mile.
that's good.
That is good.
Yeah.
Jude says, the book of Jude says, showing compassion on some, you make a difference. Okay?
Yeah.
And going that extra, and kindness, niceness is not a fruit of the Spirit, but kindness is.
Yeah.
I'm going to say this, being grumpy is not a fruit of the Spirit either.
You know, I recently.
He's one of the dwarfs, but he's not one of the fruit of the Spirit. So.
But, you know, and one thing, you know, that really helped me think about that, not too long ago, a preacher, my pastor reminded me from listening to him of a story that is in the Gospels about Jesus after he had heard about the death of John the Baptist, his cousin.
Yes.
Right.
Heard about the death of his cousin. He left, and his intention was to go and be by himself. I mean, it doesn't tell us what he was experiencing emotionally, but as he was going to be off by himself, he runs right into the situation
Yeah.
where he sees the needs of the people, and he opens himself up to feed 5,000 people.
Right.
Right.
And when we are dealing even with the brokenness of this world, we cannot forget our purpose in this world. In that moment, as probably as I'm just thinking about the physical Jesus, as much as he would have wanted to go and just not be bothered with, we don't hear about their childhood or what it was like. We know that Mary thought enough of Elizabeth, the mother of John the Baptist, enough that she went and seen her.
Right.
During her pregnancy, so I can assume that they probably had a close relationship.
We just
Yeah.
talked about this.
Yeah.
In Matthew
Yeah.
11, I just taught on this. John the Baptist is in prison, and he sends his disciples to Jesus, and he says, "Are you the one, or should we expect another?" You know, and I shared. I'm guessing that they played together as kids. You know, they were second cousins. They went to youth group together.
Yeah.
Okay, they played miniature golf and volleyball. You know, youth group. They as they became young adults, they went out for lattes at the Jerusalem coffee shop. You know what I'm saying? And they did life together.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he saw Jesus, and yet he became offended. Jesus said to his disciples, "Go and tell John all the things you've seen and heard. The blind see, the deaf hear, the lame walk." And then he adds in, "Blessed are those who have not offended because of me." Okay. Now John's in prison. John's in prison. That's why he's saying this letter. He's got offended. He's got the thing going on, and he said to Jesus, "Are you the one, or should we expect another?" Now, I've got to add this. The cool thing about Jesus, he deals with John privately with his disciples. He says, "Go and tell John, remind him all these things." Then Jesus turns to the crowd and he said, "What did you go out to see?" You know, he lists this guy, and John the Baptist was the hippie of the New Testament. Okay, he was an Old Testament prophet, but he wore the clothes and he ate weird things. He was the first hippie in the Bible. Okay, in my opinion. All right.
Yeah.
But Jesus turns to the crowd and he said, "There's not been one born of woman greater than John the Baptist." That's what he says.
Yeah.
The point is, he deals with John privately, but publicly he affirms him. He doesn't put him down. He could have turned to the crowd and said, "This guy, this lowlife, he's my second cousin. You should know all this stuff. We've been doing life together. We did squirt gun wars together. We did all this stuff growing up. He should know better." He doesn't do that. He looks at John. He says, "Okay, John, here's where you're messing up." Okay, privately, and then publicly he raves about him publicly, and that should be our attitude. You know, and that's why, you've got a history, but I've got a history. You don't know all my history. My history did not include going to jail, but there's other things. But publicly, we affirm you. I don't care about your history. Your history is what makes you, and your history is His story in your life.
And you know, and sometimes while we are fulfilling his calling on our lives, it get pretty interesting. John the Baptist went to jail for standing up for what was right.
Right.
And the interesting part with that, I mean, just thinking about him humanly, I could see him, by experience, I could see him sitting in this jail, and then you're still hearing about these other things that's going on. And maybe even for a moment, like, okay, if I'm doing all these good things, why am I here?
Right.
And if I am here, then what was I doing these things? Is everything I was doing, was this really what God wanted me to do?
Yeah.
Right.
I could see John maybe even wrestling with some of those things because he's human.
Right.
I've done all these, I mean, how many times have we done all these great things and then we still hit that stumbling block?
Yeah. Yeah.
I've been managing my money, I've been paying all my bills, and I've been giving my tithe, but I still lose my job.
Yeah.
Why would you?
Yeah.
There's other verses that come to mind. Some people said in Matthew, I think in Matthew 7 or whatever, they said, we did all these signs and wonders for you.
Yeah.
And Jesus came back and said, I never knew you.
Yeah.
I didn't really know you. You didn't really know me. I didn't really know you. You know, and that relationship, you forged it, you've made it, and God's opened those doors supernaturally, done incredible, amazing stuff. And you are a preacher of the gospel, and I want people to know that you can contact Charles Nelson. He's at Zion Baptist, on some sort of a staff position there, a minister, a pastoral role. Facebook, you can find him on my page, find him on your page. If you want to contact him to let him speak at your church, all right, we'll make a way, find out, contact us, we'll make it happen, because you want to hear this guy. You want to hear his story. You want to hear what God's put in him. You want to hear how God's using him. But he walks in humility. He didn't ask me to do this.
No.
He's not trying to make a platform for himself.
No.
He's been through some really rough stuff, more than most of us together will ever go through.
Right.
I mean, I've known a handful of people that have had somebody murdered in their family and killed, you know. A lot of people never know anybody
Yeah.
in that realm. It's kind of like COVID virus. People say, do you know anybody who's afflicted with COVID virus? Yeah, one of our next guests coming up, his whole family was right here in Omaha. We're going to be talking about that as well. So thanks for being on the show.
No problem.
Thanks for being on 2 shows.
Well, I thank you for having me. If I just have that few moments, like you said, yes, I am one of the associate ministers at Zion Baptist Church. That address, 2215 Grant Street, 2215 Grant, G-R-A-N-T Street.
It's not very far from the Hope Center in downtown Omaha, if you know where that is. So I've been there. It's a great place. So thanks for tuning in to Caring Community. Charles Nelson, thanks for being with us. My wife, Diane, and I, we thank you for watching the show.
Thank you.
We're here to provide opportunities to show how people can care for others, and that's what it's really all about. Thanks a lot. We'll see you on the next show. God bless you. Bye-bye.